contacts. Hey, Craig, are you able to hear us?
I am.
All right, great. If you guys are okay, let's start. All right, let's call this meeting to order. It's 6:03 p.m. And if it's all right, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing while we remember those who've gone before us. Thank you very much. Can you get the radio? It's over there. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Roll call, please. Here. Here.
No. Trustee Decker.
Here.
Trustee O'Malley.
Here.
Trustee Klein.
Here.
Trustee Water. And
There is no public hearing, despite what I have on the screen. My apologies. Forgot to change that. Okay, few quick announcements. First off, we have a letter from Cheney Library on their centennial celebration of the installation of little Cheney libraries in 5 locations in the village. Do we have anybody here to speak on that? No, we. Okay. Anybody online who would speak to that? No. Okay. As part of its centennial celebration spanning September 22 to October 23rd, 2023, sorry, not 23rd. The board of the Cheney Library would like to install 5 little Cheney libraries around the village. The little libraries will be built and painted by students at Hoosick Falls Central School and will serve to benefit the entire community as free lending libraries. The library structures will measure 14.5 inches deep, 20 inches tall, with roofs that slope to 14 inches in the back. Constructed entirely from wood, they will feature 2 large latching doors on the front that will open to provide access to books. Each library will be painted to look like the Cheney Library. Libraries will be mounted on either 1 or 2 4x4 poles with bracing underneath for stability. The proposed installation locations include the Castle Park, which is 9 Barton Avenue, 3rd Ward, the 4th Ward Playground, the Youth Center in 2nd Ward, Wood Park in 4th Ward, and 1st Ward and/or Clay Hill. Some locations will be coming later. Volunteers from the library will be responsible for stocking each library and monitoring its condition. Community members are welcome to borrow and add to each library. And the timing is the aim is to have all 5 libraries installed and stocked prior to the kickoff of the library centennial celebration, which looks to begin in September of this year. So we have this letter. I don't know if we need to decide anything specific tonight. I think it would make sense for them to come and discuss this a little bit more, if they're able to. What do you guys think about that?
I'd certainly like to hear what they have in mind.
well, little library, but really good. I mean,
Yeah, they're gonna hold both, so
yeah, they're cool.
14, 20,
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
yeah.
Are they asking for money?
I think they're asking for permission to post them throughout the village.
Long time ago. And, you know, circled around the village.
Yeah.
You know, would you have a problem with that, helping guiding, helping, with that?
So I think it would make sense for us to ask them to come and talk more in detail. Love to see it. I'm glad that they're doing work at the school. I know their workshop is amazing. All right, we also have a letter from the St. Patrick's Day Committee about the 31st annual parade to be held on March 12th. at 1 p.m. A request for funds from the village to help with the cost of the parade. We do have $1,000 in the budget out of our celebrations line. So because we have this in a general line, but it's not a specific line, so it's one item that requires a board motion to approve those funds. Well, is there anything else you want to summarize in there? Ms. Leather? Pretty much.
Everybody provided, as always, to participate in the march.
Yep. So if everyone's good with it, I'll take a motion to pay the $1,000 to the St. Patrick's Committee out of celebrations fund. Thank you, guys. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed or abstentions? Craig, you good?
Aye.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna have to keep remembering that you're over there. All right, and one simple reminder, the upcoming village elections are going to be held on March 15th. Voting is available from noon to 9 p.m. at the Ann Borton Memorial Municipal Building, and it is in the courtroom as normal. No, no. Anything else you want to? Anything else in outfit? I think so, right? Fine. Okay, we have a presentation, but when I put this file together, I forgot to adjust this. The presentation is not from the newly appointed officer in charge. My apologies. I'm just gonna exit out on this real fast. And yeah, this, but we actually have Doug Sauer here from the Civilian Review Board to discuss the civilian, no, it's the, what I always get the acronym backwards. CRRB. Community Review, okay, right, he's of the CRB proposing the Civilian Review and Reform Board, CRRB. Doug, if you don't mind, I want to talk to the board. I know we've gotten to meet with Doug, and the group has been doing work for over a year to do a lot of good things. So take it away. I'm going to move the camera closer, just so people at home can hear better.
So thank you. Just a little bit of background, back in mid-2020, the governor signed an order that mandated that all municipalities with the police departments form do a comprehensive reform plan that would look at all the policies and procedures, engagement with the community, and include a civilian complaint process and procedures. The board was created to do that planning document with myself, Simon Gillis, Trish Whitmer, David Ward, deputy mayor, as well as the village clerk, working with the police chief, and a comprehensive report was presented to the board back in March, April of 2021. That was for the most part accepted, approved, and submitted to the state. The portion of the reform plan at that point in time regarding the structure and powers of the review board was delayed. There was a feeling that the village council that it needed to do more research around the parameters. It's a new concept, a lot of pushing that reality of it, and what the authority would be. So it was put off about 6 months. The review board met in the meantime because it was committed to advise the police chief on it at that time, and we did a comprehensive review of policies and procedures, which are almost about the 400-page document, which you see it. And we also participated in interviews of potential candidates and advised the chief on that. We helped out with recruitment strategies for that. We talked about budget issues that the police chief brought up at that time, as well as any community issues that he felt maybe something we could be aware of that could become a problem if we didn't do something. So we're kind of well on that role. We're coming and asking for a formal establishment and creation of the board as opposed to a temporary board, which is what we are supposed to be having. I want to emphasize that the role is to assist and advise. It's not a decision-making group. It really advises the police chief and the department, and probably to some extent the mayor, because the mayor supervises the police chief on matters of policy, procedures, issues going on in the community, directions, as well as just good public relations with the department. So I know that it's being considered. It depends on how fast the village proceeds with creating it, whether it's municipal law or resolution. And I think we're at that stage now.
Yeah, so we got to meet with the group. We had Andy and Elaine through Zoom. We had Paul and Bernie from the police department as well. And a lot of the conversation was about how other municipalities are legally doing this, whether it's versus a resolution or not versus, whether it's through resolution or through a local law. And we talked a lot, and Andy walked us through really helpfully about the mayor's role as dictated by general municipal law versus the board's role and how that works. Do you want to speak briefly to that? And just to why we decided we think the local law is the way to go?
Sure, very briefly. It's certainly my opinion that under the village law, the mayor has strict responsibilities over the police department, and this board has responsibilities over the police department. So in general, it's the mayor that oversees the general conduct of the police. Village law requires to supervise the conduct of the police department. But the village board of trustees clearly has the responsibility under the village law to deal directly with discipline and charges against individual police misconduct. We had our discussion. It's very clear that Doug's board, that the board on which Doug is a member would be purely an advisory board to assist principally the police department and chief of police to certainly report to the board. But given that none of the statutory responsibilities of the board of trustees in particular, or the mayor, are going to be transferred to this board, the board is advisory only, that it's my opinion under the village law that the proper way to create that board is through a local law, not through a resolution. There was work done by Trish Bloomer on a resolution, much appreciated. We had some discussion on that as a group, but certainly my opinion, I think Elaine Gold, who's over this labor council, concurs that in order to make sure everything is covered, including the legal establishment of the board, that the local law process should be done. So given that, we'll take much of what's in the form of the resolution currently and prepare a proposed local law to then be introduced by the board and go in that direction. So the proposal would be to create the civilian review and reform board through a local law will outline membership, responsibilities. Is very clear on what the board's role is. That's set forth in what was drafted by Trish and presented to us as a group. And it's just a process to go through in terms of the local law adoption process. One of the things for the board to think about, I'll raise this, and it was in the proposed resolution, on both the number of board members. The initial proposal was 3 to 7. That's, you can choose to do that, or you can choose a definite number to make sure it's clear that this is the total membership and that those are filled. And then also, not necessarily qualifications. The resolution drafted by the board included considerations such as residency or business ownership within the village. I think it's better for the board and it's clearer for everyone involved if there are specific requirements for board membership, that may include that they either have to be a resident or a business owner operating a business within the village. That way it's very clear whether someone has the ability to serve on the board and be appointed. So those are a couple of things to think about. Total number of the board membership and whether it's a residency requirement, who would be qualified to sit on the board.
Can I add just 2 points?
Please, yeah.
One is diversity is important to represent the community, just as communities. So it's not a certain type of personality. And secondly, as of right now, we have no policy or procedures on community complaints. We've been written documents, there's been nothing. So we're a bit vulnerable, not even having procedures in place. And that is something that we work with. In the meantime, or do something, but that to me is a priority of putting something in place so we don't have to get caught and spend a year and a half and nothing's been developed on it. And we didn't go down that path because there wasn't a authorization.
So my thought, is, that we spend the next few weeks, Andy drafts a local law, if that's what the board decides to do. Andy asks us the pertinent questions about, how many do we want to have in this group? What kind of, requirements do they have on the group? Things like that, so that in the March meeting, we can present this as a local law. Set a public hearing like in April, unless we decide earlier. Have the public hearing the following meeting, and then we can choose to adopt it or revise based on how people come out and speak to it.
So we could be actually voting on the local law.
Yeah,
We do have a local law committee, if that's helpful.
what's that?
We did create a local law committee.
That's right.
That's helpful.
The three of you could just hash this out and then send us your recommendations. That's totally fine as well. However we want to proceed, I would be very happy about that. I would just say include Bobby, since he's been going to all these meetings. And then the three of you guys can work with Andy on drafting that local law and get it out to us. That would be fantastic. Bobby, is that good?
Yep, on me.
All right.
We want to move, we want to move, we want to move forward.
I mean, we could, she's been going to meetings and doing all the minutes, and they have the whole policy on, and work, file we can get you. So they've been sort of working as draft policies, going through and kind of codifying it and organizing. We can have to get
400 pages. 400 pages.
Well, yeah, it's more. I have the binder out in my van. It's got some thick to it. Yeah. So any other questions for Doug or Andy?
So is that, is that along, I know we want to get this done as soon as possible. Yeah, we have to.
Yeah, but
If we're going local law, we have to go. We have to go. So we, first, and it gives us time to get our language together for the next meeting. So we- and it- for a public hearing for
I'm going to add, and that's part of what you're saying, is that we can understand this, that there would be a comprehensive application. Because it can be sensitive information and things that are not very public, including some things that may be in the policy. Procedure of the house.
Remind me who's on the local law committee, right? And who's our third? Anyone? Just
No, I think it's just the two.
so yes. All right.
Yeah.
I think so. I've given that so. Overall,
Yeah.
I passed out.
Okay. So what I propose to do is take, by and large, the resolution as drafted, put into a local law form, add a couple of comments and questions like we've gone over.
Okay. Doug, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So Andy, yeah, we're full speed ahead on preparing a local law. Thank you, guys. All right. I got a couple comments that were not quite loud enough, so I'm gonna revert to keep shouting. Sorry about that, so that they can hear me on the live stream. Okay. So just a couple of quick mayor updates. We have the redistricting happened in New York State. We have a new congressional map that was passed by the state Senate and Assembly and signed into law by Governor Hochul. These changes are meant to apply for the 2022 election cycle. And just as a quick summary, I know the Hoosick Press did a great job on summarizing the changes. In terms of the U.S. Congress, we are now going to become part of District 21, which covers most of northern New York, and that's currently Representative Elise Stefanik is the representative for that area, which means we would be losing Representative Antonio Delgado. His district will be the next one south. So instead of being connected to the south, the eastern tier on the south, we're now connected to the north.
We have a choice.
No, it's out of our,
Because I don't want her representing me.
Well, when I get that, she's going to-
No, she's just.
I was glad to see that she signaled already in a press release that she understood the PFOA contamination in our area, and she has committed to working for that, so that was really good to see. It's obviously going to be really hard to lose Representative Delgado, who's been very present, very involved in not just the PFOA situation, but a lot of farming legislation and listening to a lot of people in this community and nearby. So unfortunate to see him go. Wish him the best of luck. Looking forward, I guess, to working with Representative Stefanik and her office. Our New York Assembly representative will continue to be Assemblyman Jake Ashby. And our New York State Senate district is still 43, but Half Moon has been kind of taken out of the district. I think part of Saratoga Springs has been too. So our current senator, Daphne Jordan, will no longer be a representative after or our senator after the election. I personally, I'm a little frustrated. I don't think this redistricting is a good look for the Democrats. But I have worked with all of these folks. I haven't worked with Mr. Stefanik yet. I did get to work with John Basso, and he was great. And he and his office were very responsive to us. He's even reached out a couple times after he was no longer representative, trying to connect him to me. So I appreciate that. I appreciate Representative Delgado's work, and we'll go into working with Ms. Stefanik and her office with positive feelings. So
The rural areas of the state that's true. At least,
it's funny because I'm from the Poughkeepsie, which is Dutchess County area, which is where it used to stretch down to. And I spent about a decade up in Potsdam, which is now where we're going to be connected to that one. And it's so funny, we're so different in both of those areas.
Our new state senator lives halfway down the state almost.
Yeah,
How does she know the needs of?
I don't know. And was it the congressional map that split the Rensselaer County in half, or was it? Yeah, just a weird situation.
But you know what, Delgado had over here.
Oh yeah, Delgado has a weird one too. His went all the way down to that area.
Yeah, but he.
He was present all over the place, so hopefully it'll be the same approach from Weber. So
They would split from a landmark, now the borough has two different representatives for Congress.
where? Really? They split right through Berlin?
Well, a small portion picks up one district, another one. It's just ridiculous. It goes, the line basically goes straight and then it cuts in Berlin and then goes back out.
All right. So it is what it is. We're moving forward. We'll keep doing what we're doing. Secondly, I got an update from the lead attorney for the class action litigation, which came up with the settlement. Attorney Steve Schwartz reports that they expect things to go as planned with checks for folks who are qualifying class members from the settlement to go out in the next 2 months. And the medical monitoring program will be beginning in roughly the same time. So I was glad to see they officially approved the settlement. There was no objection, so no appeal. Moving forward. So that was good to see. All right, people to be heard. Just as a reminder, when you are called upon, please begin with your full name and street address. Share or speak to whatever you'd like to discuss. And if you are at home, just speak up. I have one online who wants to speak. Is there anybody online or in here who wants to speak as well? I see Mary with her hand up. I see Barbara Zeal. Anybody else? All right, we'll go Marion first and Barbara second. Marion, if you can unmute.
All right, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
We do.
Okay, Marion Stevens, 63 Weiler Avenue. We are just checking in to see if there's any update on the sidewalk snow removal, law.
No update. The last we left it was. We saw a lot of so no update. Anything else, Marion?
You're not coming back.
What's that? Marion, can you hear us?
Barely.
All right, do me a favor, mute your mic for a minute and turn up your volume.
We have our volume up as high as we can do it.
All right, mute your microphone for a minute so there's no feedback. And the quick update simply is we don't have an update. The last we left it, things were too hard to codify with too many problems and concerns that we foresaw. So no action.
Okay, could it be put on an agenda for next month?
I don't think the board has a particular direction they want to go with this. That was the reason that nothing has happened, unless I'm mistaken, board.
We talked about it, everybody returned it.
Yeah, we talked about it, but we just keep running into issues and we perceive problems with policy and procedures, so we haven't had a change. So at this point, the board has no plan on moving forward with any changes. Not ideal, but also we don't see changes to local law making it any easier. In fact, we see a lot of problems with it.
So you're basically telling me it's been trashed.
Say that again?
You're basically telling us it's been trashed.
We're not moving forward with any other changes, so.
Well, when somebody gets hurt, gets killed because of walking.
Okay, thank you for the update.
Yeah, Kevin was just speaking about how hard it is to enforce and how he's seen that in Troy, so.
There was, I know this isn't the answer you're looking for, but there was, a post on Facebook about somebody who's organizing kids, young kids to go around
We
and,
saw that.
so,
This is a bad snowstorm for that to be a starting point.
I know, well, this snowstorm was impossible.
So, sorry, why is the board not doing anything about shoveling? I didn't hear why you're not doing anything.
No, it's not about shoveling, it's the fact that we had talked in prior meetings about looking at maybe creating a local law to codify what things are done and not done. But as we started to look into that and dig deeper into that, we foresaw a lot of problems about deciding which exact areas we do and don't do. We saw a lot of problems with what if the equipment isn't working, or what if we don't have enough personnel on that day. All the variables of all of the various different elements of this proved, or it basically we couldn't figure out a way to codify it and make the problem easier. It will still have its own set of problems, possibly more.
Well, unfortunately, the village can't do every sign
Yeah.
unless we hire 35 people.
Rob, I'd like to interact that there's a lot of villages and areas around that have plenty of sidewalk snow removal laws, and maybe you could look into them.
Yeah, send a couple my way. If you find some, send them my way. I'd love to look through them.
We will.
Tell them our neighbor in New Jersey.
Well, we found them right around here. All right, thank you. We will.
Yep, thank you, Marion.
And the storm we just had, there's no way you can make someone go out and shovel their sidewalk with that ice. I mean, you can't move.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, like right now, I mean, you drive around the village right now, how many sidewalks in the village? I are down to, right now, actually, it was dangerous to bring it down to the pavement because of the ice.
Yeah.
You're better off reading and walking on the snow. So it's, I mean, it's So, I mean, you can't pick and choose what storms you're gonna enforce it on either.
Yeah,
I mean, the enforcement is almost impossible.
What is Mary Ann asking?
she just wants to know more progress on codifying, trying to get all
No, Barbara.
Barbara,
I'm asking what,
oh, I'm sorry, Barbara, 1 minute.
what is her proposal? What is she saying?
Just-
There, Mary Ann?
Okay, you ready for me?
1 minute, Barb.
So if she wants, what's
Been
the proposal?
looking for specific laws dictating specific areas that will be shoveled or plowed by a certain amount of time, and we have policies in place and we do what we can, but once you start to codify things, then it becomes, well, why is this spot going, why isn't that spot? That's, and then it's balancing workload and equipment and so on and so forth.
Homeowners.
Hey.
Have to be responsible.
Right, I'll remind the board, we did look at a number of surrounding community, local laws dealing with snow removal. We had drafted a proposed local law for the village, and the board reviewed it, discussed it. It was principally the owners of the property adjacent to the sidewalk were responsible for snow removal. Within a certain period of time after the end of the snowfall, after discussion about that local law and ways it could be changed, or ways it could be enforced, the board decided not to introduce that. It viewed a lot of problems. So that's the history of it, that there was a lot of effort undertaken by the board to look at that, there was a lot of research done. And ultimately, the board decided not to pursue that through a local law. It was not introduced.
We have a hard time enforcing our university law.
Yeah. Okay. Barbara, we're ready for you. Thanks for waiting.
Okay, hi, can everybody hear me? Hopefully. This is Barbara Zeal. I live at 26B Willow Street, in the 2nd Ward. And if you didn't do a law for the snow plowing, you may just straight out the gate say no to this. Cat poop. So I don't know where everybody else lives, and I don't know what the stray animal situation is where other people live. In the 2nd Ward, it is really a problem with stray cats. And by stray cats, that means cats that are straying through the streets. Some of those cats are pets, but they are allowed to wander, and some of them are feral. Some of the feral cats apparently are living in some of the abandoned buildings that are either completely abandoned or are owned in part, I think, by the village. So the problem is piles of cat poop, as well as property damage from all these unfixed stray cats, and some of them are fixed, that are urinating on people's brand new treated wood porches, sneaking into backyards and urinating everywhere. There have been a number of discussions online on the Hoosick area Here and Now group. They've damaged people's expensive plants. I know they've been through my garden. I have to chase them off. Gardening season is approaching. Recently, there was a really angry post. I don't know the person, but someone had mentioned getting a BB gun, which of course would cause all kinds of other problems. But the thing that people say, if they're the cat owners, then they say, well, the cats are fixed. There are no laws. It's not like you can leash a cat. And then the other people who don't have cats say, well, it's damaging my property. And, you know, the pet or the animal control person doesn't do anything. And that's in addition to the stray dogs and the stray dog poop problem. So there are a few things. One is cats, and the fact apparently that there is no law about cat ownership within the village, that if you have a cat, then you need to keep it on your property. Just like if you have a dog, you have to keep it on a leash, right? As well as sort of a secondary thing, there are the signs that say there will be a fine if you don't pick up after your dog, but that doesn't seem to be enforced. And then of course, there is nothing to enforce when it comes to a cat. And there's just piles, especially now you can kind of see them all because of the snow. So, I mean, piles and piles and piles of dung. And as soon as it heats up, it just means that flies are everywhere and the stink is pretty substantial. I don't own any cats, but as soon as it warms up a little bit, my porch reeks. And I don't have a cat. So again, I'm not going to go get a BB gun, but that's the discussion that's been happening. So I guess, you know, could there be something official, some sort of, if you have a cat, then you need to keep it on your property. But then who would enforce that? And who is the person who's supposed to be taking care of animals and why aren't they? So I know it's sort of 2 or 3 different questions there, but really, I had spoken to someone and said, I don't want to be in charge of anything, but if you need assistance to set up traps, then we can trap the animals, but then you have the issue, is it somebody's pet? Well, if it's their pet, why is it on my property and not in your house? I know a couple of neighbors who would be willing to have traps in their yard, but not set them and go pick them up. I said that I could help set them, especially if they're abandoned buildings, that it's nobody's property to set, you know what I mean? Nobody's really watching that anyway. So I can help if you come up with a plan to sort of have like you buy the traps and I don't know, make an announcement that, you know, for 3 Saturdays in the row in the month of May, we're all going to trap overnight. So if you have a pet, keep it in the house. But then what do you do with the trapped animals? You know, so it's kind of a can of worms, but at the same time, to do nothing. I spent a good deal of time chasing the cats out of my garden last year because I grow food and I really don't want toxo growing on my food. But other people have really expensive like landscaping that's been dug up by these animals and people, you know, people get mad at one another and all kinds of things are said. So now you know, but there's, you know, quite a few different pieces there. You've got to write a law. You have to figure out what to do with the trapped cat, who buys the traps. So back to you.
No, all right, so, Barb, and actually there was, one of the trustees who said they wanted to talk about this as well. I'll say a couple quick things and I'll see if Andy or Mark or Paul wants to chime in from their perspectives. I actually lived in the village of Nassau and we had a neighbor who fed all the cats, in the neighborhood, including ones who would just breed and have more cats, and everything smelled like cat feed. It was awful. And I don't think legally there was anything that could be done about it. I know that we have an animal control officer, but that's only specific to dogs. That's not for cats. I don't know if there are any rules that would back this up. And I'm sure Andy's gonna wanna opine a bit on what we know of. This is one of those things that kind of falls through the cracks. And I don't know if there's a good solution, but Andy, do you wanna speak? Setting that?
You know, at this point, I'll look into the issue for the village. I'm not aware of anything that the village currently has in terms of local law or resolution. Probably nothing. We'll take a look at that. Certainly we can. I don't have any thoughts right now. Frankly, I've not dealt with a stray or feral cat issue in any other municipality, so it's a new one. We'll take a look at it.
Mark, anything from the code enforcement side of things?
Yeah, there's no laws when it comes to dog cats that I'm aware of. Our animal control, not dog control.
Yeah.
Control, and
Right.
no, it's an issue that does come up from time to time. There's nothing. And just in the course of her description, you can tell how much is going on, because there's nothing you can do. You can just go out and start shooting cats. You know, nobody's gonna start shooting cats. You're gonna try to trap a cat. You know, then what do you do with the trap cat? It's a feral cat. You know, I mean, but when it comes to animal control, dog control, there's dog control, and we'll be very into the police department. Our local law when it comes to that kind of control does put enforcement in dog control officer.
Could the mayor, since he's closest to the microphone, can you sort of give a synopsis of what they both said because it's kind of an echo. I can't quite hear what they
Yeah,
said.
between our attorney, Andy, and Mark, our code enforcement officer, basically, we're not aware of any laws on the books. Andy's gonna look into it, and see, if we have anything and or what other municipalities do. Mark, correct me when I said animal control officer, it's not an animal control officer, it's a dog control officer, and if there's a situation with dogs, it's to be handled by the dog control officer and the police department working together. We're not aware of any laws or regulations regarding cats, and we're gonna look into it somehow, right? Paul, do you want to add anything?
No, just, the fact is, like you were talking enforcement, if it's a stray cat, it's gonna be tough to enforce against any owner. Unless somebody comes in and gives us a statement saying, you know, it belongs to this person at this property. And again, in the past, humane, Mohawk, where the animals go, you gotta watch it, because sometimes they're full and they won't accept it. So if they start catching these cats, you gotta have a spot to put them.
Did you hear that, Barbara?
No, sorry. I think it's because you guys are in a big metal room. So it kind of sounds like this Snoopy teacher, except for you because you're close to the microphone.
Paul Alexonis, our officer in charge, pointed out the fact that if you do trap them, you have to have a place for them to go, and sometimes they're not even taking it because they're full. So just more of the same difficulties that we're anticipating, so.
Right. It's like that's exactly right. Because, if you do trap them, sure, maybe second chance would take them, but take them to do what? To spay them and release them? To rehome them? I understand it's sort of on the one hand for you guys, it's going to be sort of like, haha, herding cats. But on the other hand, there is property damage being done. There is a health aspect of this when it comes to kids playing around poop, just like when there was all the dog poop on the ball field.
Yep.
So, there something hopefully can be done, even if it's some sort of, you're supposed to have a dog license and you're supposed to have a leash, right? So even if it's something along, you're supposed to have a cat license, at least you know who the cat owners are. And if they don't have a collar and a license, then they do get around it. I don't know how helpful any of that is, but it's just, it's bad. And as you said, you've experienced it yourself. So,
Yep, we're gonna look into it. I actually just got a neat link from one of our trustees, and possible thing we're gonna look into. So yeah, we will look into this, and hopefully we'll have some report next meeting.
great, thank you.
Barbara, didn't you say that, a lot of people have gotten back during COVID? Now they don't care about them anymore, because they can.
A lot of people got cats during COVID, and now they're not caring about the cats anymore. Is that what you said?
Barbara?
I heard Barbara, womp, 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 womp. So or Robert, Mr. Mayor, can you say it one more time?
Yep, Deb wanted to know if you have heard or seen the fact that people during COVID got cats, and now that COVID is kind of waning, everyone is ignoring the cats.
I think you said something about traps. I did get.
No, I didn't, but we'll try again. We got it. Sorry, Barbara.
Well, the one thing we can do, though, she said that she was passing companies for capture living in.
Yeah.
Perhaps if she identifies as Bogey's Mark and take a look to see if they're, doing.
Kevin suggested that if you guys give us a heads up in the village where the abandoned buildings are, we may be able to make sure those buildings are secure. Give us some
Okay.
ability for some of the animal issues there.
Great. Well, there's a start. So at least I can relay that. So great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to reports. Trustees, treasurer report is up first. Anything you guys want to highlight? Denise, I know you're on. Anything you want to highlight?
Hi there. Just that, as normal, we're in a cash crunch this time of year. So to keep spending to a minimum unless it's really needed or an emergency. We're just really busy in the office and I'm working to catch up. And if anybody has any questions on anything, feel free to ask now or email or call the office.
Any questions?
Another-
sir? All right, thank you, Denise. Looking for a motion to approve the treasury report. Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Yes. Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Carries. Thank you. Police report, Officer Alexander.
Since the last village board meeting, the department has answered 167 calls. 165 of them were handled by the department, and 2 were handled by the Rensselaer County Sheriff's Office. Just to kind of run through quick, the calls we had 6 animal complaints, 7 administrative calls, 3 assaults, 4 fire calls, 49 EMS calls, 1 assist code enforcement, 3 burglar alarms, 3 court details, 2 criminal mischief, 1 custodial interference, 4 disabled vehicles, 6 disturbance calls, 6 domestic, 2 driving complaints, 1 fraud call, 3 harassment, 20 investigations or follow-ups, 1 larceny, 3 lockouts of vehicles, 1 open door, 2 property checks, 3 property damage accidents, 6 public assists, 1 search warrant with the New York State Police, 1 stolen vehicle, 1 suspicious person, 3 suspicious vehicles, 1 sex offender registry, 10 traffic stops, 1 warrant arrest, 8 welfare checks, and 3 911 hang-up calls. Out of all these calls, the state police assisted us with 2 of them, and the Rensselaer County Sheriff assisted with 4. The department also assisted the state police and the sheriff's department outside the village for the month. We had 1 burglar alarm, 1 disabled vehicle, 1 lockout, 1 property damage accident, 1 stolen vehicle, 2 welfare checks, and we assisted Bennington Police for a total of 173 responses for the village. For comparison, in the town, there were 68 calls in the same time period. 28 were handled by the state police, 39 by the sheriff's department, and 1 by New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. On the sheet that I submitted to the mayor, there's the mileage for the vehicles, all 4 of them. Sticking with the vehicles, 504, we had to have that across the Carmody. We had some warranty work done, and while they were doing that, we found other problems. Everything's been corrected, and that vehicle's back in service. 502, which is our new one, we just had the oil changed on that in service. And 503 will be going to Barbara and Quickies on the 21st. Regarding personnel, Officer Jonathan Warner graduated the Zone 5 Police Academy on January 24th. And he's actually been working several shifts and he's been doing a great job. One thing I wanted to bring up, we had to make an emergency purchase, which for a refrigerator freezer for the department. That was about $229 at Home Depot in Bennington. We got a call from the state police lab that we had evidence down there since August that needed to be picked up because they couldn't keep it there anymore. Some of it was DNA evidence that needs to be put in the freezer. The freezer we had was removed, so we had no place to put it, so we had to make the emergency purchase. Officer Hudson, who was working, took his own personal vehicle and went up to Home Depot and picked it up. We tried to get the village highway department, but the vehicles were all tied up and one of them was down. So Officer Hudson went up in his own personal vehicle and picked up the refrigerator. Officer Davitt and Officer Warner brought the refrigerator freezer downstairs in the record room, set it up, and now all the evidence that we got from the state police lab is secured. Our data master for DWI arrests, that was sent out for its yearly service and certification that passed, and that's been brought back and put in service. One request that we had this past weekend, we were requested by the Rensselaer County Bureau of Public Safety to monitor the Hoosick River due to ice dam warning up in Eagle Bridge. and possibility of flooding. I guess they've got news media reports that there was flooding. The areas were checked, it never actually backed up, and about between 9 and 11, the river actually started receding, so we lucked out. I just want to bring up a couple things, and I know Denise mentioned about the cash is kind of tight. But myself and Officer Dalek and Officer Hudson, a couple of things that we were looking for, it's probably going to be not till the next budget year, but we want to do a subscription to Police One Academy training. What that is it's about $90 per, right now it's $90 per officer. And what it is, there's hundreds of trainings that we can do, because according to New York State, we've got to have at least 21 hours a year. By having us, subscribe to this training, we can establish our own monthly training, weekly training, however we want to do it. It's just going to help the department with our training. That kind of been a little bit lackluster, but we're looking forward to getting everybody trained. The other thing that we're looking to replace, again, probably in the next budget year, is we need to replace our copier. We've been having issues with it. Plus, it's black and white. We actually need something colored if we need to print pictures out for court people. So that's just something to look forward down the road. That's pretty much I have, unless anybody has any questions for me. Right now, it's $90. If we wait till we're, I'm sorry, what's that? Yeah. So what it is if we do this in the next budget year, the price may be up and maybe down, we don't know. Right now, it's about $90.
So would that just be for you or?
No, that's for the department. However many officers we have working or on the department, that's what we would be looking for.
So if we had 10 on the calendar, we would be paying for 10 subscriptions, but if we ended up hiring more, or we had a couple more, we won't need to pay more.
So they can get their certification, get this staffing certification right online in state.
Right, what we can do is, when they're working their shift, they can actually sit at the computer for half an hour or an hour, whatever it takes, do it. This way, we're not paying overtime or, any extra money being spent. They can do it right there on their shift or during their shift. It's not a long period of time of training. Usually it's like maybe a half an hour. But if we ever get called in the court or the village gets sued, it's gonna help us out because it's all in everybody's file.
Well, can you change those spots on somebody's, let's say we have officers come and go up quite often in the village, can they, after 6 months, if somebody leaves, can you put somebody else in those spots?
I would think we probably could. That I would have to get an answer with. I don't know if it's so much you have to have a specific officer that just say 10 officers. So if somebody were to leave and we were to bring somebody in, I think that would still cover.
Still keep the number the same.
Right. But I can double check on that.
Oh, the other thing was, over the past year, I've noticed a lot of unregistered motor vehicles in the village on the streets, so in parking lots. Would a plate reader be helpful for the village PD? I don't know how much plate reader costs.
But a plate reader is always helpful. Yeah, you're never gonna hear me say no. The thing is, it is pretty expensive, so.
When you say,
Offhand, I would have to look the price up, but I know they're not cheap. A lot of times they get them through grants. Maybe bigger cities can do it.
Are we talking like 5,000 to 10,000 or like 20,000 or 30,000? Like 1,000?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't know. It could be in that range between 5 and 1. That's something I would have to, look up and get back to you with the price.
Yeah, some of our issues in our parking lots is unregistered motor vehicles. I was leaving it for a long period of time. I noticed there's some down by Church Street, Lower Church Street. There's been some on Church Street block. And also there's some streets as well. There's cars, brakes, fire, gas.
The discussion we kind of had before the village board meeting was any of these unregistered vehicles, we can ticket them. But if they sit there for a long period of time, we're having an issue getting towed from somebody to tow. So that's another problem we'll have. We can keep ticketing them.
I did talk to Augie Brownell once about towing cars last year during snow emergencies. He said it's all just during business hours, to be more happy to tow cars.
others that have follow up on that. Maybe an issue you're looking at, local law dealing with municipal parking lots. Correct, there's a prohibition on any long-term parking of any vehicles that are unregistered. And that there's enforcement of either towing or ticketing. So that's already in the law. So if we have evidence of long-term parking in municipal lots of unregistered vehicles, I believe it.
And then on the streets, on Church Street, I saw 2 cars parked there, checked the registration. And it was a narrow part of the street, and these cars aren't moving, they're sitting there. And Neil can attest to that's one of the worst streets to navigate, so it almost turns into one of these streets.
Yeah.
15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, and there's a big chunk.
Any questions?
Oh, absolutely.
Any questions for Officer Alexonis?
Well, thank you for, really,
Great.
yeah.
All right, looking for a motion to approve the police department report. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? All right, thank you very much. Code enforcement, Mark. Mark, can you come over here so you're closer to the microphone? Just stand right on the table here. Just kidding. That's fine. You can also sit if you want. I'll hope the chair isn't as loud as mine.
So you have my report. Anybody has any questions? The only other addition is to discuss the 71 Wilder Avenue property.
Before we jump to that property, anybody have any questions on the report? I know we have that to talk about, and I know Kevin brought up another property. Andy, do you want to touch briefly upon 71 Wilder?
Sure. So Mark and I did a fair amount of research today, this afternoon, and with respect to family in the village, we went back and the village had a zoning law that it adopted in 1977. And while we haven't looked at particulars of that, one can surmise that 2-family dwellings were allowed in multiple zoning districts within the village. And in 1992, there was a local law which amended the zoning, which limited 2-family homes only to the downtown commercial district. But there was a provision that said that basically if there are existing 2-family that one of the unit is owner occupied, that is otherwise allowed under our then current zoning law, those would be allowed to stay. Excuse me? It would have been in any zone in which a 2-family with 1 unit owner occupied allowed under the 1977 zoning. So from 92 forward, the only zoning district where 2-family was allowable was downtown commercial. But if you can think of it in this manner, if there had been existing 2 families owner occupied, you can think of it as being grandfathered. They were allowed to continue. Okay. Then there was, in terms of 71 Wilder, I realized that there may be more to follow. So I'd rather at this point simply talk in general terms. There may be some issues that Mark will need to deal with from a compliance standpoint. Note that the village then did a wholesale new zoning law in 2016. And in 2016, the local law repealed a whole series of prior zoning laws and other local laws. And that included the 1977 zoning law was expressly repealed. And the 1992 local law dealing with the 2-family in multifamily only in the downtown commercial. That was repealed. The provisions of the 1992 law, if you would appear to Mark and I, were simply taken wholesale from the 92 law language and dropped into the 2016 law. Mark and I will need to review that to determine, it really made no sense because two families were not allowed in any other zoning district than downtown commercial since 1992. And when you simply borrow the language and say, but two families would be allowed if they existed and they were allowed in any other zoning districts under this article, they hadn't been allowed in any zoning districts under zoning since 1992 other than downtown commercial. 71 Wilder is not in downtown commercial. So we also note, and this is a matter of public record, so there's no issue with discussing it here, that in 2002, the then owner of the property applied to the village for a change of use from a two-family to a one-family. And then the records show that thereafter, at least on the village records, and in particular, the village assessment roll, it identified the property as a one-family. And it's Mark's understanding that for a period of years, it was in fact used as a one-family.
It was also used as an owner-occupied two-family for a period of time.
For a period of time, there's some other records from 2011 that we're going through. So the long and short of it is, the zoning clearly does not allow a two-family in any zoning district other than downtown. That's the current village zoning law. Whether this particular property was a two-family back in 1992, which then would have allowed it to continue as a two-family, is one issue that we'll look at in the building department. Then the application for change of use from a two-family to a one-family in 2002 has to be assessed. Then there's some additional municipal record from 2011, which shows an owner-occupied two-family. Mark also has information that the property has not been used as a two-family for a period of years, at least 5 or 6. And that there may be some work currently ongoing with this property in terms of the second unit. So at this point, I think.
Use it as a brand new family or as a home park?
No, the intent, I believe, is to sell it to two-family or to rent out the apartment. No, they intend to, and they are using, it accidentally got changed from the one family to the two family, the evaluation process. That's what's led to this, even though the owners know, because the owners came before the village board a number of years ago, with the situation, trying to get the board to approve. The board denied them at that time, based on the minutes that they got provided. So they were aware of it. But somehow during the readout process, because let's go back to the owner at the time, 2002, who changed it from two-family to one family. He had there was it was the time when you guys are changing the water or the garbage or something, where now when you had a two-family, you were gonna have to pay the double. This is my theory, and I think go back and look. This guy didn't want to do that, so he changed to one family to save himself from the double, whatever the double bill was going to be, like garbage or water, whatever it was. So he changed it to one family at that time. But this place, when you look at it from the outside, it looks like it's a family. The inside, it's like a two-family. But legally, it's not. He changed it in 2002. You have the paperwork that shows where he changed it from a two-family to a one family. And you can't, my understanding is that once you do that, you can't go back.
So Mark and Andy are very much looking into this. You produced a great historical record of what was going on and explained it for us. Thank you. This is great. If you have a situation where you're not sure, go to the board, go to Andy. Absolutely, and that's what we're doing. So
At some point when something from the board, Tony will change, the assessor will change it back to one family. You will correct
You
it.
all had the opportunity during the revamp.
So when I got my home, we did the reval, and someone came to me and said, Marshall, two-family home, my house, and it's not a two-family, it's a one, so.
So the person that went to
Yeah,
this
you all
house,
had the opportunity to change anything. on the
So,
revamp.
yeah, they're looking into the historical record of that.
the
And-
person, we got something today. The person that went to this house, talked to the tenant and made a note that the tenant was groggy and really refused to get it home.
Is that a note on the record?
Andy hasn't seen, I just got that late today.
So-
And yes, there's,
And there's one other concept, just so the board knows. There is a difference between what your property is listed on an assessment roll for tax purposes and what the zoning compliance status of the property is. I had the unfortunate opportunity to litigate that issue on whether something that is on an assessment roll has any legally binding effect on zoning compliance, and it does not. The law clearly says taxation, the assessment, the characteristic of the property and assessment roll is just for tax purposes, and they tax what it's currently being used for, and there's no independent consideration of whether that use is legal or not. Assessment rolls deal with taxation, zoning laws deal with compliance, legal compliance with the property's use, so they're two separate concepts. It's information that we should look at, but this is gonna boil down to what does the zoning law say, what does the record say, what's the current zoning compliance of the property.
And what about the parking? Is people, you have to, is there room for two cars? And they have cars for the parking?
That's another issue, this property that I saw, looking for local zoning. They just put in a parking lot in front of the house. And the cars almost touch the building. I think it's in the zoning, it says it has to be not within the minimum setback of the property, so in this case, I think it's almost legal right away to begin with. To make it really fit more cars, either on the street or property.
I've heard that rumor. All right, any other questions for Mark?
But I think it's something we should look at in the spring, because there's other houses too, where people have just decided they're gonna, especially rentals, where they decide they're gonna park the car in the front yard of the property, and then drive it. Getting approval from water.
there's conditions in there to do that, and it's supposed to, request a curbside, I think. Neil that.
Can't be within, like a street where you can, it cuts off the view to oncoming traffic.
Yeah, I think it even said, and I had to look at it, something about not parking something else. I'm not sure about that. That one's a little tough.
Well, for most houses with the minimum setback, you could put it right away from the front, at least the village, most of them are right on the street.
No, most of the issues for that kind of stuff are down.
What's the zoning board for the planning board? Have some sort of say in terms of, we let it. First of all, I think we have to go to one of those boards to do that. Second of all, they could take into consideration the feelings of the neighborhood and how that might change what the neighborhood feels like.
Normally you have to do a zoning board of variance. It's a change of use, you might have to go to the planning board if you want to change the use, or you're gonna add in some parking or something. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
Everything boils down to, I'll give you just the Reader's Digest version. Planning board deals with general site development work. So whether it's a site plan, a special use permit, a change of use, and depending on the particular zoning law, it will either require a public hearing or not. But regardless, every one of those applications for the planning board is subject to environmental review under seeker. And one of the issues is the impact on the surrounding community. Community character is an issue under seeker to look at. A zoning board generally is there to provide relief from the zoning law, that if the strict application of the zoning law creates an undue hardship, you can ask for an area variance on area and bulk standards, or a use variance if you want to put the property to a particular use that's not allowable in that zoning district. Everything in front of the zoning board requires.
But we've already talked about parking, you know, so I think, you know, I always thought that, I know that a lot of the parking is talking about downtown, but overall, all
Anything else, Mark? Looking for a motion to approve the code enforcement report.
Motion.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Carries, thank you. All right, clerk, deputy clerk, anything you want to highlight?
Not really, we're busy with bills. We discussed new copier is still a few weeks out, but,
All right,
we've got the old one.
all right. Any questions? Looking for a motion to approve clerk, deputy clerk report?
Motion.
We got the motion already. All right, perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions?
Aye.
All right, carries. Highway DPW reports. Bobby, anything you want to highlight?
Neil and his group were very busy with form last week. Is this old information about Christmas tree pickup is over?
Believe it or not, there are two lists that I've made.
I thought it was a typo.
It's amazing what you see at nighttime.
somebody threw one, you know, our little sidewalk issue we have on that fight across the street.
Yeah.
Somebody threw a tree over the fence.
Really?
Phil, probably that the other day, down there. That was never.
Yeah.
Neil, the dog, that's what the dog park signs. So it's on order, we have a date roughly for.
3 or 4 weeks.
Okay. So we get a temporary, we talk about doing a temporary one, if we do that, or.
I think if we have a way to. Well, I don't know.
I mean, are you in a hurry?
Yeah.
During the snow? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Great.
But, I mean, if we have any way we can put that up, Neil, and not be exposed to the weather, if it's for laminated. You can print it out, we can laminate it, right?
Laminating, so like,
How big of a big,
we can start with small one. It's just to the center of the street, right?
Yeah.
When you turn it off.
oh, you get that to me, I can get them.
All right, go for it.
There you go.
Anything else for, Neil and Bobby or highway report?
No, I don't think so, Neil, the sweeper is on reserve for May. The sweeper?
Yeah.
Okay, that's something that.
I would just say kudos to the highway, but I don't think we realize that ice, is not that long, that stuff is hitting. There are a lot of times you can see, I can hear it sometimes. These guys, it's like hitting a brick wall.
Yeah.
Some of that ice, that was not an easy storm.
No.
Anybody can deal with it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Those guys get beat up, you hit, it's like driving into a brick wall with a flop.
Well, you had a good plan from the beginning.
And
Even before the storm started, we knew what we was gonna do first to prepare for it.
so one highlight, I just want to touch base on, this last month, we appointed, we hired, our mechanic to cut down on those labor costs. Most roughly saved approximately $5,000 the first month in labor costs, just going through most of the equipment, checking it out, and he covered it issues that weren't covered under warranty, so you've already saved money
Yeah,
and you're moving in the right direction, so.
that's great.
And you did a lot, we did have a lot of equipment, not downtime, but.
Yeah, you know, like this last ice storm, we pretty much blew a plow frame on it. Whatever he needs, so he's got that on the table, he's got welded in place and tweaked everything back to, so we got that one extra plow and that kind of thing.
That's great. Paul, you know you can mechanic that?
Yeah, yeah. The signal work, you know.
Go for it.
You know, I was hoping to kind of get the sidewalk cleaned up through there, but apparently there's some impatient people wanting to get back there and park and make it cost their bill. So the sidewalk. Talked around Alex earlier tonight, and, you know, we've got parking issue in the parking lot, we've got more parking issues than just the parking lot, so. We need it next.
Well, if we can pass a chicken law, then we can get the parking figured out.
But we don't want to take it long with the chicken law for the heart.
Leo, for the sake of ease, why don't we call storm emergency, 3 inches or more, like it says on the side? And why doesn't he control what's called storm emergency? Rather than ice on the email, there, or chief, that should be, that's a no-brainer.
That's the way the old board had.
Right, on, we can do it.
Well, that's the question. Is it a resolution or is it, how is that determined?
Or is it just a delegation?
Andy?
Social check, these are usually done through local law declaration of whether it's snow emergency. And many municipalities will set it up to have, whether it be the supervisor or the mayor, declare it, and the language can be used that it's the supervisor, the mayor, or his or her designation. Yeah, which can be.
And the sign say 3 inches, that's all.
Well,
It's already on there, so
we have-
that's the old emergency, so we can get the more.
The lights,
Well, that's the worst storm, that's a night, that was a snow emergency.
Well,
That's why you should be able to call, and I'm saying, nobody pays attention, it should be your thing.
If you need a call, then I've been called it. Give me a call. That's all right. I'll take it.
The only other thing I have is Denise and I have been working on a chip report. Trying to get some money back to the board from the state. That's due at Friday, so.
Do we have an idea how much we got?
I think Denise does.
Denise, do you have any idea what we're getting back to chips? Not sure if you're still listening right now, Denise. Nah, we'll check. in.
Hello?
Hi, Denise. Do you know what we're getting back for chips?
I want to say just off the cuff about 160. I was just on dog duty. I'm sorry. It's right about there.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I'll put it on. I'll put that in next month's report, the exact amount. I know we're gonna try to put some cost for some equipment under chips this year. Yeah, we'll make it work.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil. Unless you guys have any other questions, I'll, have to take a motion to approve the highway CPW report.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Carries. Sewer department report. Anything you guys want to highlight or ask about?
No, good to see you still making money.
Yep. Yep.
Down, I walked yesterday and walked today, and I saw sewer trucks down there and stopping off, at the sewer treatment plant, so we're making money daily.
Yep. And looking at the last couple of years, we're kind of right in the middle, right averaging out. outside of the village, right? No, is it in the village, Sewer Plant Road? Ah, go talk to the town supervisor.
The problem is probably wants to take the claim.
Leave it in that for you. And work for them.
All right, looking for a motion to approve the sewer department reports. Need a motion to approve sewer department report?
And Kenny did get you forward, right back.
Oh, the new back truck.
The back truck would work, yeah, I talked to Kenny, about that, video. Over on Scott Lane, had sewer break the other night, and, so it worked great.
That's great. I should find out how much we used to spend on renting each time. Be good to know. So we have a motion in your second to approve the sewer department report? Second, no, you made the motion.
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Carries. And water reports. Craig, anything you want to highlight?
They completed another gap change out in January. That's the main highlight.
All right. Sounds good. Motion and second, further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? All right. Carries. Minutes. The January 11th regular meeting minutes are up. Any comments or change? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to approve the January 11th regular meeting minutes. Thank you. Thank you. Multiples. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Carries, and my apologies again. I took my message from last week. Again, I don't have the minutes. So it's gonna be it again. So my apologies. I'll get that next time. And Reed will throw things at me, and I will not get cookies from Deb. All right, trustee committee reports. Let's go down the line from Kevin all the way down. Kevin, anything?
No, Mark has one property listed on the report for, abandoned properties, government property on 97 Classic Street. That's gonna be up for auction, I think. Next week. So,
Is this a county auction?
no, it's a foreclosure auction.
Okay.
I think I sent it to you guys, but you have to get it. Pictures later. Working on the Hoosick Summer Concert Series, we have 3 lined up so far this year. June 25th, July 24th, and August 27th. Whiskey City Country Band in June, June's House Rockers in July, and West Side Drive. Might have a few more if we have enough funds. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Megan? All right, Deb?
Well, I was gonna bring up the second ward thing, and I know that, it seems to be a real issue, that's the only thing that we can do to help them out.
Which second ward thing are we talking about? Yeah, okay. I don't know. Yep. All right. Got it. All right, thank you, Deb. Bobby?
Do you want me to go into the street light?
You sure can if you want.
Yeah. Well, that's what I sent a copy to everybody, right? Everybody. So, I had a phone call with Steve Hearn last Thursday. And we went through his proposal step by step, and the bottom line is we did go through these steps. I'm not even sure how many years ago it was. Were you mayor around the time?
I was, it was early on, yeah.
Okay, and that was with Smart Law.
Yep.
And we were all set to pull the trigger, but then at the time, I believe, Kevin, do you remember, National Grid, said that, they were going to upgrade our fixtures, do an upgrade, and that's why we held off without going through and pursuing the smart lock. And,
Yeah.
actually, I think we had initially started to sign the agreement with smart lock, and then we ended pulling out because of the fact that National Grid is gonna, they're gonna do additional work, which to my knowledge is not been done, Kevin, you.
No, I would tell them, I should get that.
Well, with that,
But I think the main issue was that how the village would maintain the lights. In other words, we don't have a truck that's high enough to reach those. That was one issue that came up last time.
Didn't the county propose something at the same time? What do you want the county?
I know the city of Troy just did the same thing, they're switching over. So they- they need to have, but Troy has large bucket trucks that the police are in, so I don't know whether, is there some kind of maintenance agreement we can sign to?
yes, there is, yes.
Is that separate, not that come from our pocket, not from the buyout?
Oh, we come from the buyout, it would come out from our pocket, but it would be also included in, you can, because there really is no expense for us, expenditure, because our savings is on, if we move forward, will be on the usage fees based on kilowatt per hour, or anything like that. And then the maintenance would come out of that, you know, our savings. And actually, yes, what do you tell you? The maintenance program is available for approximately $250 per light per month with a smart control option. And that's, and that would cover the fixture bumper, bumper pumper, so they would maintain it. If there's a defect, whatever, they would come and repair it. And there would be like the way I understand it, we've gone with the LED, there's like almost like a main program, you're gonna have a control center for all the lights. So you can tell which one, it'll give you a reading of like what lights are out. And so you don't have to, go look at the pole number and say, call that, it's it, pole number 10, we have light fixture out. It's gonna be a program, it'll tell you that, and
You could also control which ones you want to have.
But you can control as far as the lighting, from like 1 AM, say midnight to 5 AM, if there's not a lot of traffic, you wouldn't have to keep the lights up high, so you take the room down. So there's a lot of options to have. Basically, what he went through is our initial cost would be approximately $40 to $50 per light fixture, and we have 410 light fixtures in the building. So how it will work is we need to contact National Grid and find out what the cost of our installer, our option, our acquisition cost from National Grid.
Did they do that the last time?
They did that, but yeah, if you remember, and they also said the number was gonna change because of the fact that they were doing other things, they never actually, if they did, they're not aware of it. So, we would have to buy a cost, and then we'd have a maintenance program. But as far as our initial cost, it would be the only cost we would have would be investment fee audit, we call the IGA. And that's roughly $40 to $50 per light fixture, and the fee is approximately $20,500. And if we chose not to move forward, this is just initial audit, and if we chose not to move forward, that would be our only cost we have to spend. But if you do choose to move forward with the project, that would be amortized into the cost as well. So you don't want to pocket money from the village going out the same, we don't have to borrow any money to make this acquisition, even though it's going to be, could be like $300,000 or $400,000 in the end. The total price, there's no cost for the village to go out and buy. We know our monies are tight in the village. We wouldn't have to go out and secure more bonds for that. Because the cost, the savings is coming, the money to pay for that, we money to save.
I know they replaced the heads on the picture.
Yes.
You asked him at all about how it would match our.
I didn't get to that, that far, but yeah, no, I did, I wanted to bring it to everybody here and see if you want to go for it, and he would come, they're out of, Steve actually is out of Ontario, Canada, but he would be here, what I'd like to do is, he was willing to be here for the March 8th meeting, which I thought would be, I think we should do that. I just wanted to bring it to the table tonight, so we're, see if we're going to bring it forward. And then once I get the okay from everybody, where he told me just give him a call tomorrow or email, and he'll schedule it for, he'll be here for the March 8th meeting. So that's what I think we should, it's worth looking into, I mean, it seems like it could be.
I'd love, if he's up there, I'd love to have Neil talk to him just to make sure we understand what possible upkeep things that we can do about. Because from my perspective, that's the thing that concerns me the most. I don't want to sign up for something that needs more work for
Oh, no,
DPW, unless you want that. Yeah.
And, looking at the bottom line, is you're talking about over 20 years of the program, you're talking about saving, almost $1.2 million out of the village's pocket, so. It's approximately $50,000 a year savings if we go forward.
Sounds good.
If we ever did change out the poles we do have downtown, putting on outlet is probably helpful because we've done some of them downtown that cost $300 a pole to change it off.
Yep.
We've done so far.
But, and that's the other thing, they also, they vet out the contract. They don't do the work themselves, but they have contractors who they dealt with, as you saw their list of accomplishments that communities they done. They vet out the contractors who do the job, so there'll be nobody won't be Joe Blow off the street coming in and trying to get a quick buck. They're making sure that someone's qualified and is reliable.
All right. So yeah, let's bring it in. Talk to March.
Okay,
Anything else, Bob?
that's all I have.
Other Bob? Anything?
Yeah, you want me to just go into the ARPA funds and
Sure, let me share that up as well.
all right, I passed this out, Rob's gonna share. First off, let me go through the list. And obviously this list is fluid, and I welcome any ideas or whatever.
Give me just a moment to fix the share at home.
I'll go through the list and I'll go through what I call a discussion. In other words, I put some ideas down there just to throw out some numbers just to see what we have. So the leachate project, which is state mandated, some of that, we think quite well. Sewer back, I don't think it does. It's not meant to pay off loans. So I know you'll say.
Can you guys see that from over there?
Sewer bank was supposed to come out of the budget money, right? Was it supposed to come out of the budget for the?
We did get that, paid for through the budget, correct, Neil?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just gonna do a strike through on that, because I know that's been budgeted.
I think Denise is actually trying to get some of that to, the fifth one.
Hey Denise, are you still on?
Yes, I am.
We're talking about the sewer back. We're under the impression that we budgeted that, and you are possibly talking about, getting
Let me go through the list.
some of that covered through the,
Now, let me go through the list.
through chips. Just give me 1 second, now, sorry.
Thank God, so we purchased it. And that's not bad.
We'll come back, sorry, Denise. Sorry, Bob, keep going.
Anyways, we've got the municipal bathroom renovations, Kevin brought to my attention that the handicap ramp rail is out. And that, that's a safety issue. The gazebo, I know you would talk about upping the technology. I just threw a number out there, 10 grand. Grandma Moses family, Kevin had brought up. Youth Center gave us a proposal for a air purifying unit. At $36,833, they also sent that to you, right, Mark? In the town? Yes. Okay, Hoosick Rising has given us some proposals that you guys can read about. They sound pretty good. Civic Care gave me that proposal. They lost a figure around $20,000. We told them having to do with fundraisers. flowers. And, you know, they're moving on, we want to do stuff like that. Postage meter is already done, that's already paid for, right?
Yes, we paid for that.
Summer concert series, Kevin, I got in there, the Armory put a proposal in. I'm sure to you as well, Mark, right?
Yes, yeah, I would expect some of that.
Was that the one?
So,
Dave Moore, guys?
Yeah.
yeah, so, also I just wrote down the police license. Something to put on the list, and to think about it, that does sound like something we have to use, especially with the parking issues. But anyways, this next sheet is just a discussion sheet, so I went through, Mark, if you guys would share the costs on the new center air purification of this discussion, right? That would cost us $18,000 and you $18,000 change. It's only 5.3% of our fund. I'm using the number 343, which is double what we have now.
I just so you know, I had that prioritized, so it's two projects, prioritized two, which I asked them to do because that's their strength.
Right.
And that was not.
It's not one, probably the biggest COVID priority.
Well, they have,
Pretty much
that was
it's
not
not
walk
one.
issue, and part of it.
Yeah, well, it's COVID relief, but anyways, this discussion will take some months. Municipal building, you know, that ends up being, if we use 10,000, 2.9%. The Armory, I put it in here, Mark, you want this? You can, I'll give you after, but if we split costs with you, it would cost each of us 20,000, and I figure just the doors and the fan, because it's something the village uses. 26 grand, it's a lot. If it gets looked into, I mean, they need to be a little more secure and a little. It's been kind of a long time to try to walk up, push it in.
The rest of them.
Like I said, Civic here, they lost 20 grand. So let's say we're giving that 25.8%. Up to this point, you see, we've only spent 70,000. Hoosick Rising, they asked for 4,000, 21%. And that, we get to the leachate project, which, right, Andy, you think?
Actually, it's unclear, and the reason for that is that there's no clear rule on it. A leachate project in and of itself probably qualifies as a water wastewater infrastructure project, but there's also an express prohibition on paying off existing debt under that. Now, we bond, for the leachate operation. Now, but the bond was done after the effective date of our fund. But still, like, I wish I could say there was a clear rule on this. On the one hand, it would qualify as an underlying infrastructure project. On the other hand, it's a prohibition on paying off existing debt.
Right, I mean, and that's something.
Are we paying on this bond yet?
No, that's it.
It's certainly under a ban. I'm not sure there's been any payments on it yet.
I think this budget year is the first time we will.
There may be an
But, interesting, just to show you how much this is, and we can really do a lot of good things with this. After all that, including 161,000, if we could. We saw 112,000 left, so we need to discuss this. You need to send me an email, I need to be sending you emails. We can get what we need, what we want. And it is COVID relief. We need to remember that. We'll figure out the youth center, but our children, air purifying, probably doesn't need one for exactly what this one is for. So we're gonna have discussions forever. That's why I did this, just to put examples up. Everyone has something to go home and mark. We need to work together. Town and the village have to work together. We can get, there's a lot of money. Like reader and focus.
I think that's there's a specific provision on law enforcement issues. I do think that probably would qualify. And I just remind the board that, remember, there's what I'm asking, the blanking on the term, but it's like taking the standard deduction. We can take the standard allowance and put it into your general fund, and then you can have some general fund uses for money. So, and that was
That's what you can't
Up to
even
10 million.
You can't put it into a rainy day fund and save it. If you take that money, take your standard allowance, put it in general fund, it must be spent. They
Right.
earmark that money on it. You can't use it for things like pension, rainy day funds, things like that. But there is that standard allowance.
Can you explain that a little bit more to me, this man, I gotta read that.
So I often view it like on your personal income tax. You can either take the standard deduction or you can itemize. The itemize, then it's specific and you gotta make sure each item qualifies. If you don't wanna go through that, just take the standard deduction. So under ARPA, it's kind of like, you can identify each category. I read it as the same concept. If you itemize, every one of those items that you spend the money on have to be a qualifying item. Or, to make it simpler, take the standard, not deduction, but the standard allowance. Take that money and put it in your
How
general
much was
fund.
it? Is it the same amount?
It's $10 million. It's the entire
See, I
amount.
didn't understand how
Yeah.
that works.
That's how, and the way I read the guidance was, there were so many comments about, is this an allowable use? What can I use it for? There's no pre-approval, how are we gonna know? They simply came up with this concept of, we're gonna let every municipality take a standard allowance. For smaller municipalities, it covers the entire amount you're gonna get under ARPA. But for larger municipalities, cities, they're getting a lot more than 10 million. So part of it they get used for the standard allowance. And other ones, they have to have qualifying projects. But for a municipality the size of the village, that's one option, the way I read it. You can take this full amount, take the standard allowance, move it into general fund money, and then it can be used for general fund purposes.
But I'm saying how much? You're saying put it in general fund. All this we can do after, we don't have to be nervous about qualified.
That's the way I do read it.
So we would get the same 342,000. I got a feeling. I know you say spend allowance is 10 million.
Yeah.
But how much would we get?
I don't know. It's whatever you're already allocated.
Let's say 350 if it doesn't.
Let's call it, that doesn't change. If that's less than 10 million, you can put that whole amount as your standard allowance into your general funds.
And then worry about spending revenue.
As long as it qualifies as you're allowed to use general fund monies for that
There's
purpose.
still a report that has to be done.
Oh, yeah, there's still paperwork. You gotta track that money. But
So we're still on the right.
you're on the right
track.
track. That's true. On the right.
Denise gave me updated figures. It's actually about 173, not 171. So I'm going to change that here on our document. Mark, to ask you to put on your town supervisor hat for a minute. We've talked about some of the projects that possibly would overlap, maybe splitting the support for something like the youth center, for something like Civic Care or something like that. What's your timeline that you guys are sort of acting on right now?
Next Monday.
Next Monday, what, pulling the trigger?
Allocate the money every week.
Well, they had their public hearing last month, right?
We did the workshop. We should be working together on this, right? We shouldn't be jumping ahead. These days, the village days have to report out. Personally, I don't think we should jump ahead. You guys talk to us. On today, we could go half on all your research projects, you don't know.
Well, the thought was, money's sitting there, we have a number of organizations that request money, more so than what you got here. And it's not going to get in the net. Let's get it approved, let's get it out there, and let's let people start doing the project.
Talking in terms of some of the shared.
That's not going to go second.
You know what? Hey, Bob, we had a public hearing. Why did it come?
Because I didn't think there was a hurry. We have until next year to do this. All this money should be spent.
Well, one month on it.
We're spending it in 1 month.
I think the town board outside will spend most of it on roads. We have
You think
roads.
that's COVID relief, then go ahead.
No,
I don't understand it. I
that's
know
definitely,
we have time. But that's you. That's not one.
Do you guys have it's Monday your meeting?
Yeah.
Do you have a plan yet, like, out there, or are you gonna discuss it, make a final decision Monday?
Yes. The plans out there, it's probably,
Okay. We'll see if I can come out to that Monday meeting. Just to speak on behalf of what we're thinking
Or
about.
any of those things out there.
I'll go with it.
Yeah.
I'll go with it. But, we also had, rescue squad had a project, they asked for up a building project, I think it was 76,000, they asked anything up, for that. We have, the economic development board that runs out money out of the village. They don't have any money, the business wants to come in, they want to get $90,000.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, if you're ready to make all these decisions. We could be going in on some of this stuff, like the rescue squad, which we should.
Oh, we still
Or the
can.
youth center, we should. These
I mean,
things
There
I
is,
don't understand why.
there is an advantage,
And
knowing,
more in build context, we can do.
knowing what the town,
That's what I did, that's what we did out there.
knowing what the town is spending their money on, there is an advantage of waiting for them to do it. We can have our discussions, but once we see what you guys have done, that can also guide our discussion. And once the residents know what the town is spending their money on, that may get more requests out of the woodworks for us. So going back to the timeline, Bobby, what do we want to do? Like, what is do we want to have everything in, do we want to publicly ask for requests and get everything in, so in the March meeting we can discuss it? Do we want to set a workshop evening out, like, how do we want to approach this to keep the ball rolling? Especially after the town finalizes to pull the trigger. It would help us to know.
We talked about setting up email.
Oh, but now we have the list, and we can send that out, right?
Well, it's not just this list, it's the full list. It's like, we have gotten requests for things, we're looking for more, please get them into us by X date.
Right.
So let's set that date. What do you want to say right now? And
March, we can send it.
do you want to set it for the end of February, get everything to your email?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. Let's say, and then we can start to act, but this needs to be spent responsibly.
All
It
right.
can't be just thrown around.
Can Deb and Bobby, Bobby Decker and I work on the language of getting the email out and press release out? And we'll set a deadline, and we'll have people send them either to Bobby or myself or the clerk, or however we decide to do it.
We can set up email this and that.
We can set that up over email. Yeah, we don't have to get together for the thing, just call for some
No,
ideas.
I'm saying, can we, so,
Well, we don't have an email list to send it out to, so we would be putting out a press release that would go in the local papers, go on the Facebook page, go on the website. So that we can
but
get.
people should could contact us. We
I
can
don't
set
want
up-
people contacting me, contact the village. Something, I don't need sending that email, just
Right, that's right,
ideas and.
right, so you set up an email just for that.
Yeah, do a separate one, if you're not receiving a hundred emails.
We can do
Just
that,
for-
we can do that.
just our profile, villages,
HFR.
We
Yeah,
can-
you need to make it.
Yeah, let's get it right.
All right, we'll discuss this, we'll set a deadline for the end of the month, we'll get something out in the next week or two to make sure all the proposals are out.
Well,
We
what
go
we
to
can
the-
do is the 8th of the month.
Yeah, 3 weeks, a week or two a month,
This is
great,
golden.
but yes. And yeah, thank you for the heads up on that, Mark. We'll be interested to see what you guys spend on, and we've already, I think we've all voiced our general support on maybe going halfsies on some of the requests for these center, and, for, secure, if you guys do, well, we'll wait and see what you guys do.
My bad, I should have left last month, I didn't know.
I can send you what I put together.
That would be great, that would be great. All right, great.
I will tell you, I mean, one of the things we have now, development aspect of it, Russell County, EDA is supposed to. No, it's not. Economic development. IDA, thank you. So the IDA is working with this purchaser of this business, or the business that wants to move into the area. And then we bought the building and the IDA disappeared. So I got Bruce and Jeff involved in it last week, and now we have the IDA back involved in it. So hopefully, because part of my proposal is to put like $60,000 to that, everything want. But if we can back off on that, we can have the IDA do what it's supposed to do, and that's $60,000. That's the
Yeah, actually, Bill Johnson, I spoke to Bill Johnson today from LDC. He said he asked you guys for, come to you guys for money and discuss, express his interest in this business that wants to come to the village, and they're looking for what they, I think, approximately $75,000.
Well, the original ask was 25, and then when they found out about this business, it jumped up as much as 90.
Right.
And then he said you could buy with 60. So I'm trying to, it's a business that, they already bought the building. So we're trying to-
So there's gonna be some jobs coming in that too, right?
They already have that, eight full-time employees.
Yeah, how many months?
Eight.
So it really shouldn't be,
although it's permitted use for this, in my mind, it really should be idea. If you want it, you don't want it. I mean, you don't want to turn away a business, either, especially a viable business. It's trying to move from
Right, moving from the last to here.
that'll qualify under the rules.
Yes.
All right. Great, thank you. I know we've already hit a couple things in new business, but that's fine. Let's go on real fast. I think we already discussed, I need to, throw out an apology. We set up a meeting to sit down with, Neil and, Chuck, and I felt awful that evening and fell asleep and forgot that I had a meeting. We totally forgot it, so.
You said it was February.
What's that?
The original email you sent said February 17th.
That was not my intention. It was definitely supposed to be January, and we missed it, so my apologies on that. So we will get it rescheduled, and I will apologize profusely again. So we'll get that on. So looking for a motion to, under old business, to table the discussion regarding household garbage and item policy.
Motion.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions to tabling it? All right. Carries on. We've already talked about dog park rules and regulations. We have to sign order. I don't think there's anything else we can talk about with that, correct?
Well, the only thing we need to talk about is not the rules and regulations, but when
Soon, sign it.
Right, well, I mean, you gotta decide.
Do we want to laminate the draft one that we sent out, put it up there and open it up?
Yes, I'd like to. I
Let's
think-
not make this complicated.
Is that okay?
Yeah, we'll do tomorrow.
Andy, any issues with?
You can also, the rules and regulations on.
Facebook and the website?
No, we have to have them out.
No.
No, also,
No, we have to have them out there too.
yeah,
Absolutely.
okay.
I don't want to waste your time.
So as soon as we can get someone to laminate it, we'll do it, we'll open it up and make it public. Someone send me a blurb to get ready to put out, so once it's out there, we can do it. Yeah, all right, great, thank you, no need to act on that, so we're all good there. New business, we've already just reviewed the preliminary ARPA funding request and discussed that. We don't need to discuss any further on that. All right. Number two, we've already discussed the proposal for LED street light conversion, and we will have that in here at our March meeting, so nothing to need to act on there. We've already discussed regarding zoning and 71 Wilder under Mark's report. So we're zipping through this. Thank you for an efficient new business. So, trustees, this is something I wanted to talk to you about and kind of get a flavor for what you were thinking. We have a Rogers Avenue water tank up at the top of Rogers, corner of Rogers and Ashley, stop there. That we've had been leaking for quite some time. We've gone for, I think, 2 grants now to try to get that replaced. We did not get out of the grant. And one of the things when we started talking about this was the concern that it would be if we rebuilt what is currently a concrete tank and built it to something that would be higher, either a full water tower or a hybrid kind of sits lower. Some of the local residents up there had some concerns about that being possibly an eyesore. Well, it was brought to our attention that the property next door is for sale. And I spoke briefly to Andy about this. The listed price is $25,000. The assessed value through Tony, the assessor, I want to say was like 10,800 or something like that. I can't honestly remember the number off the top of my head. It would be public information. But anyway, if we were able to get this property, if you can bear with me for one moment, I will get this up on the screen. It's possible that we could budget for this property to purchase it. So when it does come time to look into the possibility of replacing this tank, having a second property right next door may give us some value to advantage moving in. Andy, do you want to speak about procedurally what we do as I get this over?
Right. In general, if a municipality sees a piece of property that meets a public need for a proposed public project, you certainly have the ability to acquire that property. You have to pay no more than fair market value. Even in a condemnation or eminent domain process, once you determine that the project or the need for the property is a public need, meets the requirements that it is a public need and public interest required, even before you start any formal eminent domain procedure, the law requires you first to make a good faith fair market value offer for property. And if accepted, that's fine. And if not accepted, that's when we go through the formal process of taking item. So if the board looks at this property and deems that acquisition could be in the public interest in terms of providing options for other locations for the proposed water tank replacement, that benefits the surrounding community in terms of potential visual impact, then and you determine that that meets a public need, then you can pursue valuing it and trying to make it a good faith fair market value offer for it. So that procedurally is how you go about it.
How big is that lot?
It's less than an acre. Actually, let me see if I can. It's about a little over a quarter of an acre, about a quarter of an acre. So it's something I just want to kind of get a flavor for the board. If you think it's worth, this is the property where the current tank is right now. This would be the property adjoining. And maybe some flexibility in the value of doing this. I know that Jim talked to Robert Flores, who of Delaware Engineering, who's been involved in a lot of our sewer and water projects. And they had talked through this. Neil, any thoughts on it from your vantage point?
Only thing I can see is, back in the days when they put that concrete tank in, I think there's some type of agreement where the village had to maintain some vegetation around the property that help hide it. Next to the tank, so, my wife did something like that, I was trying to work over there and tie the trees or something on the property.
Okay. And speaking with Jim, one of the advantages he saw was it would be a little bit lower, especially in this area over here. And if they went with the tower, which would have a smaller footprint because it would be higher, it would still likely be hidden by the trees and not be the visual eyesore people were concerned about.
So will it obstruct the view of the house directly behind it, or two yellow, whatever those are?
Oh, right here?
No, back behind.
Over here? No, because Ashley Drive is higher than this property and the trees would be maintained there.
Right, but how high are we talking about the tank?
Depends on the type of tank and it depends on size and money and all that stuff. But I mean, I think we had looked at, I feel like we went for like $1 million or $500,000 grant for it. It's gonna be a pretty sizable chunk.
I think it was a $4 million.
I think it was too. And I think that was a hybrid that was not concrete, but not full tower. And I think there may be other ways, or maybe even ways to go with less water being held than this does, that would still work for what we need over there. So I guess, so the question that I want to bring to you is, should we pursue this as a possibility? And I'll be able to report back after speaking with Jim and Flora next meeting.
I'll make a motion that we do pursue it, but I think we need to start in fairness to the residents of that came to us previously in regards to the design of the new thing we need to do. We need to look into look into the options. It's not gonna hurt for check, not making the decisions.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think we need an official motion. I just want to get it clear from the board.
I think that I'm in favor.
Meg? Kevin?
I just like to do what Robert Flores says about, what the veterans spend the money was to make first, see if yes.
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
we're not gonna spend any money.
Right, we're gonna just be looking into the sale of it. But yeah, we'll do the purchase price.
My concern would be in moving the footprint of the water tower. I mean, what are our obligations for moving the tank?
Well,
Would it have to be moved, built?
I think once we would, originally when we made the plan, we would actually have taken this down and built on the property. So having a second location actually would allow us to do it in a different order, which could actually be more efficient anyway. And then,
You try to be able to keep that tank in service and something, then.
pipe it in, yep. So there's a lot of good possibilities with that. All right.
Sell that property?
No, we could try to have more.
Yeah. We can put some office space up here, how's that? There you go. All right, so thank you. Let me switch the share back here. All right. Okay, let's go back to PowerPoint. That was it for that. Oh, we've already discussed the Church Street parking lot. Oh, no, we didn't discuss it. We started to talk about it.
That's huge.
So we had discussed, let me find this document in the town, or find this document and share it. Just bear with me for one moment. This was a picture file that we had discussed. I think it's from Google something or other. This is the existing Church Street parking lot. So I wanted to facilitate discussion without trying to, take 1,000 years or beat a dead horse. We have multiple parking issues. We have the fact that there are vehicles stuck on roads that aren't being taken out when we have to plow. We had made changes here a couple years back based on things we heard and changed the signage and changed the rules on this. Once we did that, then we got more complaints about the fact that now there's fewer overnight parking. So what we kind of have to do in my mind is figure out what is the best policy for all of the needs, even though we have multiple problems that we're trying to long-term solve. So correct me if I'm wrong, Neil, this area right here is temporary parking and no overnight parking, correct?
2 hours.
2-hour parking. Okay. This area over here is,
No overnight.
No overnight parking, but you can park there all
okay, no time restrictions except no overnight.
Yeah, there are times.
There's 2-hour limits?
No, it's from.
day. You can park there at 8 times. all day. But you gotta be out of it by 10 o'clock.
At 10 o'clock, but also,
But you cannot do overnight. So there's a restriction of no overnight here, but it doesn't have the 2-hour limit like this does, correct? Okay, and then we have these spots here which do allow for overnight parking. And then, and over here as well is also overnight parking.
but you also you have to be out of this space by 7 a.m.
Which ones? These here?
The overnight parking space, yeah.
What do you mean?
Says, over, I think it says. Somewhere it says you have to be out of this. You can't move your car at 10.
From 10,
Okay,
They don't think it's allowed, that means you can't park.
oh, okay,
okay. So these do allow for overnight parking. Are there other restrictions on these, this line here and this line over here?
There's two handicap on that one end.
Right here?
Yeah.
Right there, it's well, okay. Are there any other restrictions or it's just straight park, uses need to overnight, it's fine. And then the line over here, which you can't see is off the map behind Trusco, there's some more spots there which do not have restrictions. So the question that we brought up, I think Kevin had brought it up, was, do we like this setup here? Do we need to change it? Is it worth spending the money to change the signs yet again? As a board, what are you guys thinking about this lot? And again, this lot is one tiny speck in the overall project. Kevin?
The project problem is not enforced. I mean, it was enforced, and then it wasn't enforced, so it was totally out of control. And I looked at the police report, this last one, where half of them got dismissed for violation. And some people were kind of paid upon, other people got dismissed for some reason. And that's part of the problem.
Yeah, not police report,
that's not the
Court.
court report.
Right.
You know anything about
No.
that? Okay,
No, it wasn't true.
yes, of course.
And the other problem is there's a lot of people that work at night and come home late. They can't park when they get home at 11 o'clock, they have to park all the way around on the other end.
You mean down here?
That's where the big tower is, the whistle down there.
Okay. That behind Trusco and stuff.
And then there's a couple Airbnbs, there's quite a few apartments where they have to go quite a ways. And then if you go on the street, there's no parking on the street between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. So where do they go?
Right. So brings it back to this. I know the problem we have in that specific location. Does modifying this solve that, or do we have to find a solution elsewhere? And if we do want to modify, how do we want to modify?
What I would do is, that was, the original plan was to have the 6 spots closest to Dorks or whatever, from 2-hour parking, and the rest would be whatever.
These 6 or these 12?
Those 6, because a lot of times people would be going to Dorks or the bank or wherever, and there would be no parking spots, and it would be just the opposite, but they would have to walk from, down on the other side of the lot. So this way, if it's 2 hours, people would be coming and going from the spots and would be available parking.
Yeah, but it's 2-hour parking on the street, but you got people that go to the coffee shop down there and park all day.
Well,
They don't get ticketed,
I know,
Part of the
it's
problem.
you know,
that's part of the problem.
so I think you can leave it the way it is now and get the enforcement and start picking from each car.
Yeah, I think we got to look at what this road up is, this is that, let's do something good, if people don't want it.
One of the things is that center section, that's, yeah, that's right. Why can't that be overnight parking with a snow emergency sign? Because that's the problem, right? You know, when it snows.
Them cars that park overnight now along the outside edge, they don't move.
Let's not talk about now, let's talk about what.
Well,
we could do, because we already know now, you already know.
We know, no overnight parking in the middle of work. You know,
I always.
if you guys want to go down there, let people park there overnight, and you guys plow. You know,
Have we all read what Trish wrote down? I don't care if it's a resolution, she actually has a point. Have you guys read it? You all read it? Pretty good, she did a lot of work and figured it out. Let's actually go through it.
But don't,
They're not talking
I
about
have
that.
seen. I have seen.
You guys have an email? Well, then we should be.
I
I thought everyone got it.
seen. You know.
I thought everyone got it.
Well, again,
13 people got it.
again,
Put it this way, we're not ready, at this point, we're not ready to move on to a resolution, right? We need to address.
but I need to get a flavor of what we would want to do, and the problem we're having is, when we make a change to a parking plan, it's not just, does it work for daytime and nighttime, it also needs to work for plowing, it needs to have to balance with all the other issues that we have.
Which she has in here.
There's extra parking over beyond the police station for overnight parking. There's hardly any cars parked over there overnight.
And we're talking about this part.
The project, we have more businesses down the street, we have more businesses right now down the street than we've had in probably 30 years. And if we don't make it friendlier for people to do business, then people aren't gonna come downtown instead.
You know,
It's a point I hear every day.
look at the parking lot down across from laundromat.
So we're talking about this one.
But Neil's point is,
All the parking lots.
Neil's point is, this is one lot,
Let's start somewhere.
but we have to keep in mind all of the other possibilities.
You
Um,
don't even want to talk.
so if we make a change, does a change like Deb suggested? If we take this one and make it overnight, that would benefit local residents, people who are living there. Would that also benefit businesses? Or would that hinder businesses? If we took this little section of 12 spots or 13 or 14 spots and made that overnight and not more temporary, would it hinder? That's what we have to figure out.
You know, how many times-
you can make, can't you do certain hours for certain kinds of parking?
They're getting confused by all the signs now. They'll make more hours.
And then the other question
You
is,
always work backwards.
the other question is, are we able to create something that is enforceable? So, well, it's clear we're not ready to do anything on it tonight.
Well, it says 2-hour parking. The police come around and they park tired on how to do it. And they come back 3 hours later, the car's still there.
We need to, in order for any parking to work, it needs to be properly posted, properly enforced.
And follow through by the court.
Well, the courts, you can't control that. We have no control of the courts. You can't say that. They can throw, we can write up every ticket we want, have the police department write every ticket we want, and have the court dismiss it. We have no control. We can't tell the judges what they can and can't do. That's not our court, that's not our jurisdiction. I don't agree with the way things are going, because I read the court notes too, Kevin, and how do we pick and choose who gets a ticket, who pays the fine and who doesn't? I saw one kid's name on there 3 times, and all 3 times his ticket got dismissed. But Joe Blow over here, he paid a $25, $50 fine. Yeah, that's not, you can't have selective enforcement, you have to have uniform enforcement by the courts as well as, but that's not happening. So if you have, and you can change the parking laws anything you want, but if you don't have teeth and have it enforced and go from start to finish. No, you know, if I get a ticket, it's gonna be, I know it's gonna get ripped up, so there, I'll go back and park there tomorrow. I mean, that's what's happening. But if you see the same, I saw the same person in the courthouse 3 times, and it was 3 different dates in parking. And all 3 of them got dismissed.
I mean, really, if you really want to go further, and I called 2 engineering companies to do studies on parking, it costs $10,000. What they do is they come, they do surveys of when the parking lots are full the most, and then when they're not, at certain different times of day. And then they recommend how you can realign the parking lot to make it more accessible and more user friendly and that kind of thing.
Can we put that on the list of the ARPA funds?
An improvement of outdoor spaces, you might be able to.
I mean, I know it's, but I mean,
It
it's.
would be eligible.
You can make an argument for that.
I think,
You should
I
at least be on the
think,
list.
I think it would, right,
So-
if you're improving an outdoor space, you can argue, well, the parking is creating more space for people.
All right, so
Also, it's COVID related because more people moved here. So we should really.
I
So-
think it's an improvement of an outdoor space.
we, to quickly summarize, we know we want to change something, we know it's not working, we don't have a plan tonight on how to do it. Trish's idea, was simply to make these 3 rows here 72-hour parking, except no emergencies would apply. And these 6, I think, would remain 2 hours during certain times, but then we have to talk about, is that signable? Like, how do we sign that properly? How do we sign this row, but not that row? I mean, there's so many things we have to discuss. I think we need to start an email thread, start to sound off on this. Talk to, include Neil in it, include Paul in it, because we have to know about the plowing side of it. We have to know about the enforcement side of it. And we also should talk to Hoosick Rising and say, these are things we're talking about. What do local businesses want? I think we need to get all the information together and put a plan together and then move on and be done.
The problem is, we've been talking about this for almost a year now.
Yep.
And 3 months ago, or 2 months ago, 3 meetings ago, we said, we'll have an, we're gonna do this quick and we'll have it done by last month. Just see that it's festering and just let, goes on forever and ever and ever without any kind of.
So if we did that, Rob, so what would be wrong with it? So who's gonna do the work on that, the study? And I appreciate all the church did it and the other people didn't. But at the same time, do we need a professional, like Kevin's saying, an engineering firm to come up and independently look at and do the research? If we're gonna, I know we wanna get it done, we wanna get it done as soon as possible, I understand. And, but I agree, Kevin, we started water for a long time.
We had a village protection report done back in 19.
You already said it right there.
Yeah.
19, you're not saying,
No, it's 2004.
still, it's 20
But it
years.
doesn't tell how to. It shows the layout of where you should lay out the parking, but it doesn't say about parking.
I mean,
Yeah, but we're in different counties.
What's that?
We're in different buildings.
There we are.
Yeah.
Well,
Do you know how many residents utilize that parking lot every day? Maybe
No.
well, we don't, and that's just what Kevin said, we need to study on it so that we can.
And if we just act for the sake of acting, if we just act for the sake of acting, just to try to do something, we run the risk of doing the same thing we just did a year or 2 ago, of changing a plan, changing the time, and then having all those people say, no, this is wrong, it's not works. So, if that means we need to bring in a firm, so be it, bring in a firm.
You can't keep waiting though. I mean,
But we have so many things that are all connected to the parking issue. And that's, we can't solve it with just one parking lot. But we can look at it
And
now.
that's why if they do the parking study, they're not gonna just cover this parking, correct, Kevin?
they do all.
They go all the parking. Because of the issue down in lower, Classic behind that parking lot. So I park there every day for a walk. And there's 2 unregistered vehicles in there. I know one's got hot plates and it hasn't moved,
Hey, Kevin, can you reach out to some firms and get some ideas of how much something would cost?
Already there, it's $10,000. Both are the same one, they're basically the same.
And do we need 3 for that much?
I know, we need to check the village. For 10,000, probably 3, written, subject to check.
Do we need a motion to?
Just reach out and seek proposals.
Okay, I'll seek proposals.
You can do that. You can notice?
No, the amount, first of all, is below the state requirements, and secondly, this would be in the nature of professional services. So the village should do the policy would govern it's true. Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, I think it's pretty written.
I think it is too. So where would we get the money for that? If we didn't have,
We'd have to look at the budget, we'd have to consider budgeting it for next fiscal year. We could look into the possibility of using ARPA funds for that very thing. Stuff we can figure out and be prepared to act on in the March meeting.
I also just throw it out there, then, I know we don't want to have a plan or something, but it'd be nice to get public input, like maybe a place where we have a public forum, again, creating another email, talking, you know, what are your concerns, what are your frustrations, we want to hear you, and I think that's how we're collaborative process.
Well-
If we hear something and then, we know this is definitely public.
Well, I think that probably would be part of the parking study would be. Citizen input.
Hopefully we can get that started already, and say, look, here you go. We've got.
Yeah.
Underneath.
Yeah,
look at that engineer.
that's a good idea, Megan, we can find both of us. All parking concerns, send it to Bob Denner. All right,
You guys will have Lincoln, just so we, I'm working up.
all good. One more item of new business. We have a situation with, an address 82 Elm Street. We have been regularly finding them the regular penalty for not having, for the water sewer thing not being installed properly. And then we came to our attention that there's actually no water sewer hookup at all. So we're looking for a motion to approve adjustments to a water sewer bill, for 82 Elm Street, due to the fact that there was no actual water sewer hookup for us to penalize for not doing the proper thing, and that was a total of $9,000, correct?
Is that an empty lot?
Her house.
Huh?
Her house is vacant.
You want to make a bar?
10 years, no bond.
Don't they have to disconnect the service? Do you not have to pay them?
That was in July 4th. water.
There was no service to disconnect, that's what we didn't know. Thank you, Megan. Need a second? We have a motion, need a second. Thank you. Any further discussion on this situation with the, water adjustment? This is one of those that can't be.
Rob, I have a question.
Yeah, right.
I heard Kevin ask the question, but then there were multiple people. I never heard the answer. Is this an abandoned lot?
Mark,
An
we
empty
have
lot?
abandoned lots.
No, it's the one that's got the barn falling down, and it's a brick building. It's been vacant for many years, probably 10.
So one's got the barn falling down, brick building, been abandoned for at least 10 years. And it just sold again.
Who owns and take the money?
I don't, so there's physically no water sewer entrance to it, and yet there's an existing building on the lot?
Correct. Mark, is that correct? Even though there's a building there has never been a water sewer hookup?
Yes, there was many years ago. It was
Okay.
Also connected to another house next door. There was an issue, they had to separate the two. And so the house next door has the water and sewer. This one was never reestablished.
The house next door has water sewer. In 2013, they separated it, and this one was never reestablished. So since 2013, this location has not had a water sewer hookup.
Okay.
Cool. We have a motion from Megan. Do we have, I think we had a second from Deb. Any further discussion on this? All in favor? Opposed or abstentions? All right, carries. Unless there is anyone else who wants to bring up, any business trustees? You sure?
I just have one.
Yeah.
I just want to ask about these bills for Verizon. Are these for the village office or for the down garage?
I can take a look at that and tell you, we have some Verizon here. No, we have some Verizon at the old and new, and we have, the water plant has, some Verizon. We're trying to get it all set either to Spectrum or to Verizon and get the in-between one out, and that's something we're trying to do once we get the Spectrum installed.
I was just wondering, because I know we talked about taking these out. once the Spectrum-
We've been slowly taking away those, and now we're trying to get Spectrum to do the install, and I have a call through to them to figure out why they haven't scheduled it, and sent us some weird question that made no sense. And
It's for the one.
yeah, it is, and it'll be nice to get that squared away, hopefully for this next fiscal year. Any other questions, board? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to enter executive session to receive advice from counsel and to discuss a personnel matter with no business to be conducted at the conclusion of executive session. Looking for that motion. Thank you. Second, if you got any further discussion? All in favor, moving to executive session? Aye. Opposed or abstentions? All right, carries. We are done in open business. Craig, I'll send you a text when we're set up in executive.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Actually, we are in the process of.